My name is Chrissie, and I am the Creatrix of Washington Heights NYC. This is a knitting and crochet podcast. There may be some embroidery, a little spinning thrown in there as I do projects that involve those things. So just a little bit about me before we get started, since this is my first podcast. I am the mom of two kids. One of my kids, my 9-year-old daughter, lives in North Carolina with her father, and my son, Gabriel, he's 5, and he lives with me here in New York City. In fact, you might hear him because he's in the very next room watching some Peppa Pig. And you may also hear our dog, Reilly, who is just next to me, right next to the bed. So I used to live in North Carolina, where I was a university professor for 13 years. I taught music. I was also a professional viola player. And I basically took the leap of faith and decided to work in nonprofit music education, where I'm now the director of education for a New York City-based nonprofit organization that brings music education to children who wouldn't get it in an after-school program. So I run the educational portion of that program, and you probably just heard my son, and you may be hearing some construction because it is New York City. You can find me on Ravelry as cdpviola, and I will be making a Ravelry group for this podcast because I hope to podcast at least once a month. It's going to keep me on track, and I'm really trying to actually broaden my, as I moved to New York City, I lost a lot of my community. I had a pretty strong community back in North Carolina, and I'm looking to find like-minded folks that engage in creative endeavors, basically. So let's get started and let's talk about a couple things. So what am I wearing today? So this sweater is my Zweig sweater. So you might be able to see it. It fits pretty well. It's really comfortable. It's super comfortable, and it was really fun to knit. It did take me a long time simply because when I decided to knit this sweater, it was like the worst time for me to choose to knit such a big object to expect to get any actual progress. I was playing lots and lots of concerts. There was a lot going on personally for my family at that time, and so it took me a full year to knit this sweater, but I'm glad I did. So it's Zweig by Caitlin Hunter. I finished it in May 2019, and it's knit in Hedgehog fibers in the Monarch colorway, which is this colorway here, kind of the peachy with the speckles of yellow and hot pink, and it's just beautiful. And then the gray is Malabrigo yarn, sock yarn in the color Pearl. I actually bought both of these yarns from what was my local yarn shop in North Carolina, which is no longer. It was called Winston Wools. But yeah, I got these before they closed, and I'm glad I did. I actually have quite, my yarn stash it's a fairly good one. It's pretty big. I feel like, I know, a lot of podcasts, you see a whole wall of yarn. Well, I know that in life I'm not going to be able to get through that. And I like to have a collection, but not something that's too huge. So when I actually moved to New York City, I purged quite a bit of my yarn. Not my good yarn and not things I had plans for, but I have plans for like lots of sweater quantities of yarn, and I do knit socks and shawls and all of that. So, I mean, I could probably knit out of my yarn stash for probably 4 years easily without purchasing anything if I chose to. I'm not choosing to, but if I needed to, I could. All right, so let's move now on to some recent finished objects. So since this is my first podcast, these finished objects go back a little bit, but just so you get kind of an idea of the types of things I knit. So the first one we're going to look at, I finished in July 2019. I started it right after I finished this sweater. And it is my So Faded by Andrea Mowry. And it is very well loved, also well worn. I do wear this quite a bit. What's interesting though, because of the colors, and I'll go over the yarns in a second, there was some bleeding, obviously, with this color, which I'm sure is going to blow out. But this is actually the color. Like, I'm looking at my computer screen, and this is exactly the color it is in real life. So this is not blowing out. This is the vibrancy of it. But you can see here, there's a little bit of bleeding of the color, but that's okay. I mean, it's supposed to fade, and it does fade, and it's super comfortable. And every time I wear it, people are shocked that. And with both these sweaters, they're like, "You really made that?" You know, because I work in a field where people are doing things with their hands all the time, playing musical instruments. So a lot of times they don't do other things that play musical instruments. And we're having a visitor, and he's running away. Hold on 1 second. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, that was my son Gabriel. He just ran in, and then after I stopped the recording, he said, "Mommy, what are you doing?" So he watches podcasts with me all the time. He actually really enjoys watching Mina Phillips' podcast, The Knitting Expat, because he adores Layla. I've actually let Mina know. I can't remember if it was through Ravelry or at one point through Instagram. How much he absolutely loves her daughter. I mean, to the point where he asks to watch specific episodes over and over just to see baby Layla. So, okay, moving on from that. So going back, so this is the So Faded by Andrea Mowry. So the colors, so I ended up starting, since we don't use a lot of colors up here, like, you can kind of fade wherever you want. And I loved these colors. These were some leftovers. The first two colors were actually leftovers from other projects. The top one I had used to knit some socks for my mom, and I actually have more of this yarn that that's going to be the main color of a colorwork sweater. But this is Araucania, Huasco sock in emerald. So that's that color. And it's a little bit greener than it's turning out on camera. It looks more blue on camera, but it is more like kind of a real teal with more green undertone than you're seeing. And then that fades into this really speckly yarn that has all sorts of really bright pops of color. This is MJ Yarns and Simple Sock in the Fruit Juice colorway. I actually knit my, I want to say it was the Fairy Lights pattern by Helen Stewart for Christmas Eve cast on. I use that. And what's interesting is, when you compare this to the socks have been worn and worn and worn and worn and washed and washed and washed. And so the color has faded over time. But here, because it hasn't been washed that much, it's still pretty vibrant. Then that fades into our next color here. So this whole section here, that is Hedgehog fibers in Boombox. So we've got speckles of black and kind of teal blue and hot pink and like highlighter colors of green and yellow. And yeah, so that's basically that one, all on a kind of a cream background or natural background. Then that fades further into Heyday from Hedgehog Fibers, which has a lot of the same colors, but there's more, there's oranges in this one, and like a kind of a royal blue as well. So, you're kind of fading into like some of the colors are the same, some of the colors are slightly different. And then we keep going. And then we start to see the bleed because we get into Hedgehog Fibers, final color for this sweater, which is Sorry Not Sorry, which is fuchsia and purple, and it really isn't sorry about it. Fits great. I mean, I would say if I were to knit this again, first of all, I wouldn't do it in these vibrant colors. I'd probably do something that was more of a true fade. I would do it longer. I feel like I have at the apex of my bust, it's at least, depending on the time of the month, it's about a 48-inch bust. And so because of that, it ends up shortening the sweater. So like, I tend to follow like measurements pretty strongly in my patterns, but at the same time, I need to make sure that fits me in a way that's comfortable. So a lot of times I wear another shirt under it so that if it rides up, I'm not showing too much of, like, I'm not showing anything I don't want to show. So anyway, so this actually took me I want to say it was under 2 months. I actually took it on a vacation. My son and I went overnight to Black Mountain, North Carolina. This was after I finished teaching that last semester. I really felt like I needed a break. It had been a really rough year, and so I said, let's go on an overnight vacation. And I knew that Black Mountain, North Carolina had an amazing yarn shop, but they also had things for kids. They have like a really great outdoor park where he can play in like water and things. Like I have a little water section right in front of the yarn store actually, and great food, and it was just the mountains. And so, getting into nature and scenery was what we needed. So I actually brought this and I knit on this there, and actually got this, the Heyday this one at the yarn shop in Black Mountain. So if you're ever in Black Mountain, North Carolina, or near Asheville, you should really check that yarn shop out. They have an incredible selection. I did buy some other yarn there that I will be telling you about on an upcoming podcast, because that will be cast on fairly soon. My next finished object, we'll talk a little bit about how I like to knit my socks, and I have 2 socks to talk about because generally I use a 64 stitch count for the most part, unless the sock calls for something slightly different, or if I'm knitting socks for my kids, obviously that's going to be different. But the first pair of socks, and I should have my sock blockers, but I don't. But I can put a picture of them on sock blockers on the screen, I believe. These have been worn. So here they are. This is one of them. And they're shorty socks. I decided to go for shorty socks because I was knitting these in May and I thought I'd have them done in the summer. Oh, no, I did not. So they're shorty socks and they're absolutely beautiful. And they have dog hair on them because my dog sheds quite a bit. And people hair because I shed quite a bit with all of this. So here is the socks. The pattern is the Simple Prim Socks by Yvonna Reynolds. It's a free pattern on Ravelry, and there are very few projects. So, you know, every once in a while we get these knit-alongs that podcasters put up, you know, to do find patterns that have less than so many people that have made them. And, you know, this is one of those. I didn't look at it today, but when I was making them, I think there were less than 15 people that had ever made these socks. And actually, I liked the pattern. I really did start to enjoy it. They have... It's like cabled lace kind of pattern. There's eyelets in there. It'd be kind of hard to see, but... And you can definitely see the dog hair now. And my people hair on them. Sorry. Not sorry. But these are knit in Ancient Arts Fibercraft Superwash Merino Sparkle. And that is in the colorway Pretty as a Peacock. The biggest thing with these is I've literally only worn them once. And I would say I love these socks, but they're not hard wearing. I didn't find this hard wearing enough for my feet. And I don't really go through socks. And I was really kind of upset. Although I will say, the day that I wore these, I was on a school site visit. So the organization I work for, I personally am the person in charge of all the school sites and what happens in the classrooms. And we have 13 different sites all across the city in 4 of the boroughs. And we were at one of our furthest sites, which is in Canarsie, Brooklyn. And so, you know, walking to the subway, walking from the subway to the school, which is like a 10-15 minute walk. And that day we had a huge event with press and full school assembly, guest artists, and news crews. I'm not going to go into more about that and who it was because actually the news piece hasn't been aired yet that we are aware of. So I can't go into who it was and all of that. But I'm actually finding like I actually had holes starting after only one day of wear. So, and I think it was literally because I was just on my feet, and there's actually a real hole in this one. I was on my feet all day. You know, this is one of the days I looked at my phone and checked to see how many steps I took, and it's like the thing almost exploded because it was way more than 10,000 steps. So that is one thing about living in New York City I'm also getting used to is all the walking. Okay, so my plan to fix these, and I have no problem repairing socks. I do it all the time because I really love my socks, and I'm not a super fast knitter, okay? I don't knit super fast, and that's okay by me because for me it's definitely something that is a stress reliever. I don't need to add more stress to my life by trying to knit faster. As long as I love what I knit and I'm still having fun with it, that's all. And I usually knit watching podcasts or watching various TV series. Like during the summer I knit through Stranger Things. I just rewatched the whole of Downton Abbey from start to finish and then did the movie. I'm now rewatching the series Vikings, and I haven't seen the last. Well, I'm kind of behind on that, but I think I watched the first 3 seasons before. Outlander's coming up. I'm a big Outlander fan. Read the books as well as, in fact, I read the books before the show came out. So yeah, big Outlander fan, and so I'll knit through those things. Harry Potter fan, all of that. So I'll kind of binge those things while I knit at night as a stress reliever. So again, these are the Simple Prim Socks by Yvonna Reynolds. And since we're speaking of fandoms, these are actually based on the Hunger Games. They're based on Katniss's sister Prim. So that's kind of cool. So if you have a knit along for the Hunger Games, or you enjoy the Hunger Games, check these out. Heel Flap and Gusset. Let's talk about that, because we're going to talk about some gifted socks that I'm going to have to put on the screen because they were gifted. They were given away. So I like to use the Heel Flap and Gusset from 'Twas the Night Before Christmas by Danny George. That's my favorite one to use. I think it fits my foot the best, and I still have to look at it to remember the pattern, but I really like the way it feels on my foot and the way it looks. So that's what I use for all my socks since I've knit that one. The socks we're going to talk about now that I gifted, they were for my daughter, who is 9. Her name's Colleen. And before I left North Carolina, I asked her to look through my stash and pick some yarn. And she picked this kind of rainbow colored yarn that was mainly red for some socks. And I decided to do a blueberry waffles sock for her. And I was able to give that to her for Christmas. So hopefully you can see a picture of that now. She really enjoyed them. Her stepmom is actually really good about taking care of knitwear. And she texted me, she's like, these can't go in the dryer, right? And I said, yeah, no, don't put them in the dryer. They're super washed. But as far as the yarn, it was actually an unknown skein. When I first started knitting, which was in 2000, it was after my son was born. It was the summer after he was born. So it would have been 2015. I began knitting. I had crocheted for years and years before that. I was taught by the person that ran the local yarn store in North Carolina that I went to. And I wanted to make like a scrap blanket, but I didn't have a lot of scrap weight yarn because I was a crocheter. Crocheters, I didn't do a lot of crochet things that was in fingering weight. I mean, I just didn't. So when I started knitting, I didn't have a lot of fingering weight yarn. So one of the people that had been knitting for like 30 plus years said, you want some scraps? I'll bring you scraps. And she brought me 2 trash bags full of scraps. And some of them are enough to make socks, like shorty socks for me. So they're like half skeins, or like full socks for my children. So I kind of put the nicer ones aside for that purpose. And so my daughter actually picked from that. And so she really enjoys that. All right. And my last finished object, this was actually what I worked on during the Advent season this year. I purchased for myself, 2 Advent, basically 2 Advent type yarn club things. So, calendars, that's the word. 2 Advent calendars. So the first one I purchased was actually from Nora George, and I got her 12 Days of Christmas, and I also got the Sweet Sparrow Yarns Advent calendar. And my intent was to do the Adventurous Wrap by Ambo and Brian, but sometimes when I get really excited about a project, I just go full force, and I don't think about certain things like, oh, how many grams of yarn do I need? Especially if it's scrappy. I just kind of go for it. Well, I didn't think about it, and it turns out all of my yarns were like 10 grams, and you need 20 for that wrap. So I modified it, but I basically used the pattern. But then at the end, I really modified it, and the shape is totally different. And it's okay, because I figure, well, now I own the pattern. I'll just do it right next year for next Advent. So I'll have 2 totally different shawls, and that's fine. So this is my adventurous wrap that was quite the adventure. Inspired by Ambo O'Brien, but apparently I created my own pattern. It happens. It's still a great... Whoa. How does it go? It goes this way. Okay. It's still a really great knit. It's humongous, which is phenomenal. Okay, so basically it's knit in halves. I don't want to give away too much because it is a pay for it pattern, but like you can see, it's definitely in half, and it's 2 triangles in half. So like you could totally do this, like just half of it and have a shawl. But the yarns are amazing. So I'm going to kind of try to show it slowly. So we'll go this way first. And some of these are my own scraps from previous projects. And I could even tell you what projects I used. There's sparkle yarn in here. There's tweed yarns. There's single ply yarns. There's all sorts of yarns. They're all fingering weight, though. There is this really interesting yarn that Sweet Sparrow Knits put in hers, and it has like these little nubbins in them, and I enjoyed that. One of the things I realized when I was knitting this shawl, and I've knit, projects with single ply as well as multiple plies of, plied yarns and stuff. I find that single ply yarn annoys me a lot, and it's simply because it gets all twisted up on itself. And that's just annoying. I just find it annoying more than anything. It's beautiful when it's done. It's just while it's doing it, it's not always, for me, the most enjoyable knit. I know the softness of it is amazing. I get that. And, my opinions are my opinions. They don't have to be yours. And that's okay. So anyway, so this is my adventurous wrap. That was quite the adventure. So how I wear it, because I wear it to work, because it is cold in New York City these days. I mean, today is a beautiful day. My son and I went to Chinatown this morning because I had to we have an honors orchestra thing. I needed to show up and make sure everything was running smoothly for that this morning in Chinatown. So from Washington Heights to Chinatown, taking the one train where I live, it's just about an hour with the walk to and from the subway station and the wait for the next train kind of thing. So it's about an hour journey. And so today's beautiful. Like, it's in the low 50s, but when it is 20 degrees outside and you're walking a half a mile from the subway stop to your house, or a third of a mile from your subway stop to work, this is so great because it's so squishy, and it's all garter. But I wear it like this, and I tuck it under my coat, and I will usually, just to be on the safe side, because it's also very windy, I found out in New York City, as I found out the other night when my hand knit hat blew off my head into the street. That was not a fun night. But yeah, I usually just tie it and put it there like this. And then it goes underneath my coat, and it keeps me super duper warm. And then I use it at the office too, because our main office is one of those really tall buildings on Broadway, which is really great, actually. Really nice views when I get a chance to look away from the computer screen. But when I'm in the office or at home and I'm chilly, it's great to just cuddle up under, kind of like a blanket. And it is so pretty. I mean, the colors are amazing. I mean, that's the one thing. Everybody really enjoys the colors. And obviously, clearly, you can see from my colors that you've seen so far, I'm not afraid of color. I absolutely adore color. But I like things that are not colorful, too, sometimes. Okay, so those are my finished objects. And now we're going to move on to works in progress. And I'm looking over here because I need to see what is going on. Yeah, all right. My pillows have fallen. Yeah, all right. So finished, so works in progress. So we'll start with the antler toque. I started this in December with the intention of giving this to my Secret Santa at the office, and decided, you know what? I don't know this dude this well, and not everybody's knit-worthy. So I've decided not to give it to him. But what's really cool, when I was looking for yarn for this, I took my son to Union Square, and they had the farmer's market and the holiday market at the same time. And I really wanted to go to the holiday market. We also went to Dylan's Candy Bar, and of course he got all the candy, because who doesn't at Dylan's Candy Bar? But the holiday market in December specifically, the holiday market is right next to the farmer's market, which is right outside the subway station. And so I was just kind of looking around, not expecting to see, I was expecting the holiday market to have certain things like candles and soaps and, the typical things you find at holiday markets. But then when I went to the farmer's market and saw a booth that was all yarn, that was pretty cool. That was actually pretty cool. In fact, I have some information on them. So hold on just a second, because I have a visitor who just went away again. What am I watching? I'm watching me. You want to say hi? There's Gabriel. You want to say hi?
Hi.
So that's Gabriel. All right, Ragamuffin, you want to go watch Peppa Pig? So sorry for the interruption. Ooh, I'm going to move you right back. Sorry for the interruption, but yeah, he's watching Peppa Pig right now in the next room. So anyway, about this yarn, the stand at the farmer's market. So it's the Catskill Merino Sheep Farm, and I actually have like their little thing. It's a little bit messed up because everything goes in my backpack in New York City, so I had to throw it in my backpack so we can get through. So I'm going to read you a little bit what they say about their farm. It's actually really cool. The farm was established in 1986 by Eugene Wyatt and his Saxon Merino sheep. a heritage breed that produces the finest and softest wool in the world. We shear the sheep in March, have the wool spun into yarn at Green Mountain Spinnery in Vermont, and hand dye the yarn at the farm. We sell yarn from our farm stands in weekly green markets in New York City and from the yarn store on our website. So I bought a skein specifically for the antler toque, which is now going to be my antler toque, because I need to replace my hand knit hat that went flying down the road. But actually, I don't have anything like hats that are like neutral colors, so that would actually be nice. So here's the tag, Catskill Merino. It is Saxon Merino wool, and their website is this, in case you're interested. And you can see how much it costs too. It's fine. We all know how much yarn costs, guys. All right, but anyway, so here it is, and this is the logwood gray color, so it's naturally dyed with logwood. The biggest issue I had knitting this, and I could probably only knit it, it's got dog hair on it, knit it in spurts, is that it does, because it's dyed with logwood, it does leave behind some gray on your fingers when you knit it. So, if I do knit it, I'll just make sure I wash my hands afterwards. But it's a single ply yarn, and it's really soft, and it's a great color. I think what I'm going to probably do is find a really cool pom-pom at some point to go with it. So yeah, I just finished the ribbing. I didn't do anything. I don't even think the ribbing's finished. I have to measure it. I don't think it is finished yet. But yeah, that's all I got done on it. And then, and actually the very next day I got really ill, so I was not in the knitting mood at all. So this is not, I'm going to be moving this, I think, into my Knitty City bag that I got as part of my Christmas present for my son. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Just to put it someplace safe before I just like randomly had it somewhere else. And of course it's totally tangled on some other yarn. God bless. I told you, me and single ply yarn. I'll deal with that in a moment. Okay, so what else do I have on the needles? Okay, so my sweater project that I've been working on this for a while. I started this after I finished, it might have taken a month or two before I started this, but I started this after I finished my So Faded. And I'm kind of into knitting sweaters. I have lots of sweater quantities of yarn already bought. It's just the time it takes to knit them. And really nice yarn too. So, I want to make sure if I'm knitting them, I'm knitting heirloom quality, something I'm going to wear for years and take care of. But I am currently working on a Breathing Space by Vera Valimaki. This is the front. Okay, so here's the front. And I'm loving this knit. I'm at the point now where in the pattern, at the very bottom of the stripes, you start to go to your main color, and you just knit until you hit a certain number of inches, and then you have ribbing. So I'm at the point where I just need to knit in this brown color. The colors of this and the yarns for this are, this is Malabrigo. It's the Malabrigo sock, and the colorway, and I'm sure you're noticing I use a lot of Malabrigo and Hedgehog. That's because my local yarn shop in Winston-Salem had that, and I fell in love with it. But the colorway is Chocolate Amargo. And then the other color, the creamy color, which has all these beautiful speckles, beautiful speckles. This is actually Teacup by Hedgehog Fibers. So the speckles in that are kind of browns and tans, and then hot pinks and blues. And, where the dye breaks, sometimes you get like almost an orange. But it's really beautiful. Like the speckles, I think, are just beautiful, and it's a really pretty, very pretty, it's just very pretty yarn. I really like it. I do have, I'm using progress keepers on this. I have one progress keeper on this. I don't even know why I put it there. I use progress keepers usually to help me remember where I started a section in this one. But I got this one a while back from a homespun house. It was probably my first order with the homespun house. I just really like birds in general. and I'm using this stitch marker. It's one of my prettier ones, but it was one of those ones that was like commercial. It wasn't, I don't even remember the brand, but it was more of a commercial brand. It wasn't, you know, it kind of came in a package. You could just get a bunch of them. And then, of course, I just have some bulb stitch markers on here and one of these from my crocheting days. When I only crocheted, and that's the only kind of stitch marker you could really use, because otherwise you crochet them into your piece, which is not fun. So, yeah, I'm having a blast with this. I'm hoping to get this done by the end of January, if not sooner. I'm really good at being a monogamous knitter. I will keep things, like I can start projects. I do get like the urge to cast on a bunch of stuff at once, but then I kind of focus on one thing at one time. Otherwise, I tend to get, because I have so much going on at work. I'm trying to get the color right. Yeah, that's good. Like even when I was a professor or whatever, I have so many different things that happen at work. At home, it's better if I have one thing to focus on instead of 15 things to focus on. So yeah, so there you go. And this is The Breathing Space by Vera Valimaki. Okay, so another work in progress right now. And this one is, we've got some really old whips here. This one I do want to finish. This is actually, so the two you just saw are part of my Make 9, because I just want to get them done off the needles wearing them. This one is also part of my Make 9 for this year. And I can talk to you more about that at another date. I cast these on New Year's Day 2019. And this is how much I have. Good job, Chrissie. All right. Well, anyway, these are the Witchcraft mittens. I really do like them. I think part of it is I'm reading the pattern out of a book. And the pattern is actually by Nina Granlund Sather, and it's from her book, the Norwegian Mittens book, which is great. And I love the stories in it, and I love the patterns in it. But I find it rather cumbersome because the way I like to knit is watching TV. I find it rather cumbersome to sit there with a book open with a 5-year-old running rampant around me. I find it like I have to really sit and concentrate and, you know, not be necessarily watching TV for something like this, but we're just starting to get into the stitch pattern. And I do prefer double points generally for in the round knitting for socks and mittens. It has a really cool, I love this rib. It's a pain in the butt to do, though. It's so annoying. It takes forever. And I'm not a fan of, like, once I get in the rhythm, I'm actually fine with ribbing in general. My Progress Keeper was actually one I got from So Sweet Violet a few years ago. Absolutely love it. My kids love it. They love to play with these types of, the pretty stars. They love them. Yarn. So these were leftovers, actually. So the peachy color is the same as this. It's the Monarch colorway. So it was the leftovers from the sweater. And then this kind of purpley color, it's Eggplant. This is from Malabrigo Machida. So it's a single ply. Again, this is probably part of the reason why it hasn't gotten any further. But I mean, I cannot wait these are going to be great to have finished and be wearing them. I think they're going to be absolutely beautiful. I love the colors. Yeah, I think they're going to be beautiful. So those are on the needles, part of my Make 9. So my plan is to basically finish the sweater, finish the hat, these, and try not to cast on the thing I really want to knit soon, but yeah, finish up a bunch of things and then go to the next thing. Or if I, or make at least some headway on this one, because yeah, I just need to probably set a day a week to work on it for like 40 minutes so I start to see headway, because I don't think it'll take long once I start doing it. It's just doing it. All right, next in my works in progress, I have some socks that I started in Advent before the rows got really long in the shawl. So I decided I wanted some scrappy socks. I love knitting scrappy socks. I think they're super fun. And they're a great way to use different yarns. And a lot of these are either leftovers or actually skeins I decided not to put into the shawl. Wow, there's a lot of yarn stuck on this. Okay, here we go. So we have all sorts of yarns here. But the pattern for these is the Weasley Homestead. And the Weasley Homestead is a pattern by the same person who did Hermione's Everyday Socks. She has all those Harry Potter inspired. Erica Luter. That's who it is. You know, I watch enough podcasts. I should know that stuff. Okay, so here is, I haven't woven in any ends, and I'm usually good at that, but I'm deciding on this one to just wait. And I don't care about weaving in ends. It's not an issue for me. It doesn't bother me at all. I like needlework, so that, and hand sewing. Sorry if that makes me weird. So some colors we got here. This is actually this top one for the, and I'm going to try to match the socks between the two of them. But the top, it's twisted rib, 1x1 twisted rib cuff, which I like. I think that's fun. But that's Nora George. It was a lucky dip. It was actually an additional skein of yarn, like mini skein that I bought from her when I ordered my 12 Days of Christmas, just for fun. The next stripe is, this was a homespun house. This was a colorway that was like, it was my very first order from her, and it was one of the Sock of the Month clubs. This was Give Peace a Chance. Yeah, Give Peace a Chance, which I love the fact that it's a Beatles reference, and I was a huge Beatles fan when I was in high school. Still am, but I was really huge then. I actually started a Beatles club at my high school. I didn't grow up in the 60s. I just really liked them. All right, the next colorway. This has actually got some cashmere in it. I use this. I'm trying to remember what the colorway is. I can't remember the colorway name or the yarn company. Oh, it was, I think it was, it might have been, I want to say maybe MJ Yarn's Opulent. So it's got cashmere in it. But anyway, the colorway, I use this to make my 100 Acre Woods shawl by Helen Stewart, and I thought it was the perfect color to represent Winnie the Pooh, which is why I chose it. This next color here was just a part of a random mini that came with, the rest are all are minis from the various Advent colors, so I don't remember what they're called. Not that I remembered what this yellow one was called. I just remember that what the shawl is that I made from it, and I made socks from this one up here. So yeah, so I think it's fun. And basically this is a free pattern on Ravelry. So again, it's the Weasley Homestead scrap, and I'm making them scrappy. And so the way I'm making them scrappy is, since it's a free pattern, I don't mind saying this, it's basically, it's 2x2 rib that every 6 rows you switch when you do it. So if you were purling for 2 rows, the next 6 rows are knit. So what I'm doing, so it's really kind of cool. It creates almost a waffly type texture, a lot of stretch in it, but I'm switching colors right exactly where that, after 6 rows, and so it kind of keeps me honest. The plan, of course, is to use the heel flap and gusset that I love, and then, yeah, we'll just see where they go from here. So this is something that, you know, if I know I have a really long train ride ahead of me, I might use. Some of the other yarns I will be using with this, some of them were ones that just never made it, that just didn't happen to get into the shawl. Some did get into the shawl. So there's one. Lots of gray, actually. Lots of grayish colors. They're like kind of a pinky peachy color. This is actually a mini that I wound up for myself, and it's actually, I will put this in. This is Hagrid's Hut. It was a Harry Potter club from Homespun House. So, oops, sorry, trying to show you. Yeah, so that one's fun. This is actually that. Here comes the little one again. Nope, he decided to run away. This is the emerald that was in my sweater. Yeah, so, I mean, I've got, and then there's more hiding in this bag. But again, tons of grays. Tons of grays. So we'll see. I may just like add to this too. It's not like there aren't yarn stores and places to get mini skeins of yarn in New York City. Really? No, really? Yeah. And just so you know, I am not planning to go to Vogue Knitting Live. I would love to. I was talking with a friend. So there's actually a knitter friend at work, and he's a man, and I love that. I've never really had a close friend or a friend that was a male knitter. But he's so cool, and he dyes yarn. Actually, he dyes yarn and sells yarn on Etsy. So it's under Manhattan Fiber Arts, and his name is Steve, and he dyes some really beautiful yarn. So check him out on Etsy. But he's going to Vogue Knitting Live. He, you know, he can totally do that stuff. He doesn't have a 5-year-old running around. So we were talking about it, and I said, it's not the cost of going to Vogue Knitting Live for me. It's the babysitter fees. So New York City, minimum wage is $15 an hour, and that applies to babysitting. And so at least $15 an hour. So it would be a bit exorbitant, especially because if I go to Vogue Knitting Live, it's not like I'm going to be on a yarn budget. So this year I'm not going to. My plan is definitely next year to go to Vogue Knitting Live, and I'm hoping to go to Rhinebeck as well. My family, there's a branch of my family tree. I've done a lot of our genealogy. There's a branch of our family tree that actually founded the town of Rhinebeck. They were Palatine Germans that were originally indentured to the British Crown, the British Navy. And so they ran away from the British Navy and founded the town of Rhinebeck. But yeah, I can trace my roots back to them. So that would be great from a genealogical point of view as well as a yarny point of view. So I'm really hoping to get to Rhinebeck, even if it's only for one day. And I definitely want to go to Vogue Knitting Live next year and take some classes and do the whole thing and save up for that so that I have a budget for that. All right, so now that we've looked at my works in progress, we have one we're going to talk about one work in progress that is crochet. And this is a very, very long-term project. I have no intent whatsoever of finishing this at all soon. I want this to be big enough to cover at least a queen size bed. So it is my corner to corner crochet blanket. And I'm using scraps from all over the place. So remember I told you about that person that gave me, I could wear this as a shawl right now. So it is, I love the fact that I can make magic knot balls and just crochet and crochet and crochet. The biggest thing with crochet for me is I developed tendonitis as a violist. And so the movement, the twisting motion actually can cause havoc with my tendonitis. So I can't do it I can't do it every day. So I have to do it every once in a while. But one of the things I did before I moved to New York City is I actually went through my stash, got as many minis that I hadn't, that were like more kind of random things and went through that bag that woman gave me. And I created humongous magic knot ball. Yeah, it's like, okay, so you're getting the idea. I also have this one, and some of them are fancier yarn. This is definitely fancy yarn. You can see this is Hedgehog for my sweater. Let's see. And actually, where's that one bag? I have bags behind the computer. I made most of my own bags. This is actually the magic knot ball I'm working on now, and this is from my Advent calendars. And what I'll do with the Weasley sock yarn, the Weasley Scrappy project, I will take the leftovers from that and add to this one to put into that bag. So yeah, so when I get the mojo to actually do some crochet, this is what I work on. I have crocheted blankets before, but they were using things like Red Heart and just random yarn. So yeah, I really love this project because one, it utilizes everything. And two, it's really cozy to work on. And I actually don't mind working on it in the middle of summer. So the kind of hook I use is actually, and this is the current ball I'm working on, is this. This was a Knit Picks. These are wooden crochet hooks. I got them because for a little bit I experimented. Before I started knitting, I experimented with Tunisian crochet, tried to make there's a designer that has created a whole, like, how do you call it? Technique for Tunisian crochet that's more akin to like the techniques you can do in knitting and more advanced crochet. And I've designed my own crochet blankets for myself. I haven't put them on Ravelry. But like the reason I got these is because you can add the cord here to do Tunisian crochet. And yeah, I've made several like heirloom type things for my kids. Crochet, like I made my son like this white romper that we used for his baptism that is uber adorable, and that's one of the few things I kept. Like the rest of my crochet I was like, it's okay. I do have a big blanket that I keep that's really colorful that I made for my son when he was born, and then my daughter has some of her things. So that is my corner to corner blanket, and you can find, that's a free pattern. You just do a web search and you can find a pattern for that. It's super easy. And it's actually, I find this a great one to do on airplanes. I actually did quite a bit on that when I first started traveling, because they don't generally like take away crochet hooks, you know, when you travel, whereas you could get your needles taken away potentially. It's not super common, but I know people have had that happen to them. So I decided, hey, let's just go for that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else with this blanket you need to know. It just has scraps of everything, and mostly I would say sport weight and fingering weight. And sport weight simply because some of them are unknown things that I got. But yeah, there's all sorts of yarn in there. I guess I could tell you a little bit about the bag I was using before. This is actually a couple of years ago I got this. This is a So Sweet Violet bag. It was a Valentine's Day bag. I really love her bags. I have little children though, and the little children get schmutz all over my bags, just so I need to like clean them. But yeah, as I was saying, I knit. I was sewing most of my bags. The other bag that I have that is not something that I created or like just some random bag I picked up is this one. I won this in a Grocery Girls knit along, and so this is by, who is this by? Lowland Originals, and it's Dutch. So it's a really cool bag, and I've used this quite a bit for things, but like some of the bags I've made for myself are like my Little Pony bag, and kind of my go-to sweater bag these days. Excuse me, sorry, that was really close. Is this one that I just made myself, whipped it up. I do have a favorite bag that's humongous, that's kind of, it's actually housing a failed project. Turns out I'm really sensitive to alpaca. Not so much because of the itch factor, but it makes me sneeze. And so I was trying to do the adventurous wrap before Christmas because I really just wanted something fun and colorful. And I was pairing it with like one of those strands of Surrey alpaca, and I was just sneezing the entire time. And I was like, this is not worth it. But it's actually housed in a bag that has an embroidery I made on it. And maybe I'll show that in another podcast. Not today. It's too far away for me to go. All right, so recent acquisitions. So let's talk about that, and then we'll finish up with some upcoming knitting plans. And we're just talking about one for now. All right, so recent acquisitions. So I got this. I ordered the Christmas Day skein from Nora George Yarns to go with my 12 Days of Christmas, and it's called Faithful Friends Who Are Dear to Us, which is wonderful. And it's a super sock set, 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. It's 100 grams, 425 meters. Really beautiful colors. This is gonna make incredible socks. I do like doing a Christmas Eve cast on. I didn't do it this year because I was doing that shawl, and I had started the scrappy socks. This could be a Christmas Eve cast on for next year. And the reason I say that is, it is fairly Christmassy. The only other one that would be in absolute competition with this one for next year, I have self-striping The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. I've had that for like 3 years and I still haven't cast it on. So either that, or I could do it at the beginning of Advent, as kind of a vanilla sock, either of them. So those are some ideas. Here is another recent acquisition. This was the Sweet Sparrow Yarns Christmas Day color. The colorway is Cold Hands, Warm Heart. I think this would be a great fall cast on. This could make a hat even. It's a really beautiful color. I really do enjoy it. It could make great socks, like great pattern socks or cabled socks, or just something fun. It's in the Nut Hatch base, which is 75-25 superwash merino nylon, 463 yards. That's a lot of yardage. But I really like it. It's really pretty. It's got some, definitely has all different. This one is not my hair. Julie's hair is in here. That's hilarious. Usually my hair ends up in all the skeins, but every once in a while I do find another color that's not my color. And that's okay. Anyway, so it's like this really pretty toasted, kind of like a toasted marshmallow color. But it's got these like speckles of orange in it, which are really interesting. And so, yeah, I'm really curious to see. And it's got these really like dark brown And clearly I like brown, so there's that. When I went and I bought the logwood, I also bought this yarn from the same people from Catskill Merino. This is a speckled yarn. It's a fingering, but it's not like the full yardage that you would. It's 225 yards, so this would be perfect for a hat, like a sockhead hat or something, with maybe not as long of a brim, or like something like some sort of fingering hat. But it's like blues and greens on a natural base, and it's really pretty, really really pretty. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this one. I saw this knit up as a hat, and it was really beautiful. I need to probably rescan this, but it's really pretty. And it's got this, like, it's 2-ply, and it's really bouncy. It reminds me of, like, handspun. So I really like that. And I do spin a little bit, by the way, but it's, like, that much. I have a spindle, and my friend Steve at work lent me a much nicer spindle, which I really do like, and I need to give back to him and probably purchase one of my own at some point. So let me show you this yarn. I got this one, my first foray to Nitty City, was probably right after I moved to New York City. And I bought this beautiful yarn. My son actually picked this out. He was like, "Mommy," and he just handed it to me. So when he does that, he's kind of a huge enabler, actually. Not just a little bit, a lot of it. So this is hand-dyed yarn by Fuzz Family for KRAFO. I didn't know much about them at all, but it's merino mulberry silk. So this would make something for a shawl, or maybe, like a faded sweater project. I mean, with some leftover brown, or it could be, I don't know. The orange may not work, but if for a fade, because they both have the exact same brown, and actually I'm going to have leftover of this. I mean, this could be kind of interesting. Just saying. But anyway, the color is rose gold. It's in their Twisted Sister fingering base. Yeah, and it does have silk, and it is rather scrumptious. Really nice yarn. Really nice yarn. And I really like the hot pink pops of color in there with the dark brown and kind of this. I don't know exactly. It says rose gold. I mean, it does. It's not the rose gold I think of, but it's still really beautiful. I really like it. My son really likes pink, so I'm not surprised. Then, right before Christmas, I decided to go back to Nitty City, and I was going to ask one of the ladies that works there. This is really funny because we were spending our Christmas alone. My parents were bringing my daughter up for the day after Christmas, and I realized if I didn't give myself Christmas presents to put under the tree, there would be nothing for me to open, or if I didn't enable my son to be able to put a Christmas present for me under the tree, because all my presents were going to come the next day. But of course, Santa has to visit on Christmas Eve. I mean, that happens, and well, let's face it, he got into his presents before then and had kind of snuck a peek. So anyway, I wanted to open something. So I decided, you know what? Let me have him do this. I'm going to go to Nitty City. I'm going to talk to the ladies there and see if they can kind of bring him around the store and help him choose some yarn for me for Christmas as a Christmas present to me. And I will just pay for it, but I don't want to see it, or hopefully won't see it. Of course, that was impossible. So what was interesting, I walk into the store, and sitting right at the table, I didn't realize this, was Gabby from Once Upon a Corgi. She was there doing a trunk show. So I talked to her for a little bit, and I said, "Would you mind helping my son pick out some of your yarn? I will buy it, but I don't want to see it at all." And she was like, "That's a great idea." And I said, "Yeah, that's a great idea. I really want a Christmas present for him that I will really like and appreciate." And so what they picked out was this. And it's pretty amazing, and I cannot wait to turn it into something absolutely gorgeous. So the colorways are Cheer or Fear on the penny base, which is 80% merino, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon, 383 yards. And Like My Cold Dead Heart, which is on Isaac, which is 100% Polworth. Okay, so this is going to make an amazing shawl. I have decided, and I hope I say this correctly because I will tell you, this is in my Make 9. This is kind of the bonus to my Make 9. This is a shawl, and I have to look it up really quickly. because of course I didn't think about like writing this one down. So this is a bonus to my Make 9. Ishnake. This is by Lucy Haig. It's one of her Celtic cable shawls. It's spelled Ishneich. And it is really pretty. It uses 2 skeins of yarn. And it is just beautiful. It has this Celtic cable. First of all, it like stripes the 2 colors. So I will use this for the actual cable. Because I know I'll need the more yardage for sure. But I think the cable will show up better in something that's more of a tonal versus more variegated. But this will be the stripes. And I think it's gonna be absolutely gorgeous. So this is on my, this is kind of like my upcoming casting on type stuff. So this will get cast on very, very soon. And like, if you take a look, I mean, it's got these beautiful navies, and if you hear that, that's my dog now. Just excuse my dog, Reilly. It's got browns and like these beautiful like reds, but it's like on a base of gray. It's really beautiful. I mean, let me just say, I was suitably impressed by my son's color choices. Since he usually goes for the brightest pink thing in the room, I was suitably impressed. Thank you, Gabby, because I know you helped with this. All right, and then right after, I was like, okay, now it's my turn to look at this yarn. And so I said, I'm going over. I said, okay, now that I bought this, and it was in the yellow Nitty City bag, they put it in a bag so I couldn't see it. I said, I'm going to go look. And there was Earl Grey, which has pops of green and kind of raspberry, and where the yarn kind of the dye breaks a little bit, you get other kind of speckly colors in there. And so this is going to be a sweater, or at least the base of some sweater. I'm not sure which one yet, but it's on the Marie Cutie base, which is Corriedale, which is, by the way, my favorite fiber to knit with. I love Corriedale yarn. That's what the MJ Yarns sock was on. The fruit juice, that was Corriedale. I love that yarn. It's my favorite. But yeah, I have 4 skeins of this. 4 skeins of this. So this will make a sweater of some sort for me for sure. Like, I've thought about doing just a real simple sweater with this, or to do something where this is the main color of a colorwork sweater. I thought about that. I'm not sure which one, but I'm super tempted. Super duper tempted, but it's so beautiful. So pretty. And I know clearly I like gray, but it's going to be different than most of the stuff I have in my wardrobe, which I think is important. I like speckles, but my So Faded is like neon. It's like neon speckles. And, and clearly the other ones are like brown, but so my plans are coming up to just really focus on sweater knitting for the most part, and then do the other ones aside, like kind of cleanser projects. Whoa, sorry. Excuse me. I just kicked the box that the computer's on. So I'm hoping to so my upcoming projects, besides that shawl, which I would like to knit, I'm okay to wait and get this other thing on the needles first. I want to knit the Elephant Promenade Elephant Promenade sweater. It's actually number 1 on my queue. I do use my Ravelry queue, by the way. I don't always do what's there, but it kind of helps me organize. And I want to do the short sleeve version because that's what I have yarn for. But first time I saw this pattern, it's by Annie Lupton. So if you have never seen it, go ahead and go there. I will try to pop a picture in. I'm going to do the short sleeve version, and actually the color I have for the main color, and I'll show this once I cast it on, it is very close to what's in the very first picture. It's like the peach and the blue. It's actually called Concord Grape, but it's more of a like navy blue, like kind of I want to say it's like cadet blue. I'm trying to think Crayola colors, but it's like that kind of cadet blue. And then the contrasting color, I have a beautiful skein of a homespun house. And last year she did a Little House on the Prairie mystery yarn, And I loved Little House on the Prairie growing up. Like, I read the books like 20 times each one, like even Farmer Boy. But I loved them. I absolutely adored them, and I watched the show, and I wished I was Laura because she was so spunky. So when it came, and it was called The Long Winter, and it has that blue in it, but it's mostly, if I remember right, it's like a cream base, but it has all these beautiful speckles of like maroons and that blue, and I think there's green in it as too. I haven't seen it in a while because when I moved to New York City, to keep the yarn I had safe, I have them in these, like, I have 2 Tupperware bins, one's bigger than the other, and that was all I really brought with me. But they're kind of, my apartment's really small, and there's one section but it's behind all of Gabe's toys that we brought. So when I'm ready, I have to like move stuff to get to it. But anyway, I'm just going to leave it there to keep it safe for the meantime. But that is my plan. Once I finish this sweater and perhaps get the mittens off the needles, or at least halfway finished or something, and that toque off the mittens, off the needles. Sorry. I do plan on casting this on, but part of it is, the reason why I have the impetus to do it so quickly is that Craft House Magic, Ellie from Craft House Magic, is hosting a retro knit along, and I thought that the 1970s, early 80s Little House on the Prairie vibe of the yarn would actually be pretty cool to kind of join in on that. I am kind of a sucker for a knit along. I don't always finish. I don't always, it just kind of inspires me to do things. There was a point in time when I was part of this one Ravelry group. I'm still part of the group. I just haven't been joining in as much. It's the Starfleet Fiber. Let me look it up exactly what it's called. It's a group in Ravelry, and it's based on, how there's like Harry Potter group. There's a Harry Potter group. I'm part of that one too, but I only did it for one time. But there's like all these, like, you can kind of play along, and it's like you have missions, right? So Starfleet Fiber Arts Corps is what it's called, and you get put on a ship. You enlist, and you enlist in January if you want to. In fact, I probably should enlist. It'll help me get my stuff in gear. So if you want to join in, you can enlist in Starfleet, because I used to watch Star Trek all the time. I'm kind of a sucker for like fandoms. Star Trek was a big one. Doctor Who's another big one we haven't talked about yet. Harry Potter, Hunger Games, and Outlander. And I've just started reading Court of Thorn and Roses. I read that, and now I'm on the second book. So like, I'm a sucker for like reading like series of things and then watching movies if there's movies or series that go with them. So yeah. And these kind of fandom worlds. So anyway, there was a point in time where I was constantly doing these knit alongs, but it became kind of untenable with like being a mom at a point and really making sure you got stuff done. But I might do it, and it would kind of inspire me to get some of my stuff off the needles and just keep me going, I think. But anyway, I'm actually a lieutenant commander, I think. And that's how many I've done. Like, you move up ranks. You start as an ensign, and you move up ranks based on how many projects you complete. So yeah, I'm a lieutenant commander. You don't lose your ranking even if you stop doing it for a while. So maybe I'll go back and be lieutenant commander again. Anyhow, I think I'm going to wrap up there. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope it wasn't too scattered, and I hope the giggling in the background and the dog shoots in the background weren't too distracting along with the construction of New York City. But I hope to be back soon, and really, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you join in and into the Ravelry group, and in future, I would like to host knit-alongs myself and get to know all of you. And if you're in the New York City area, definitely reach out if you ever want to do a knit night. It might have to have a 5-year-old in tow, but hey, that's okay. All right, have a great week. Have a great month. Happy knitting.